welcome to episode 60 of the Coffee at 11 show on this windy and grey morning here in Ireland. I'm delighted to have you here. Thank you for being here. In particular, I want to thank Paddy O'Connor, a friend of mine, a guy I've known for several years, a guy who I admired for several years. I'd like to welcome you, Paddy, to the Coffee at 11 show, brought to you courtesy of wigwam.ie SME peer support. Paddy O'Connor, come in and say hello and show us your coffee mug, please.
Hi, everybody. Pleasure being here.
And Paddy, indeed, it's our pleasure. Come here, an absolute pleasure having you here in the cafe to join us today, Paddy. Thank you.
Can I share one story?
Please.
It'll be 2 minutes, because I've probably given a little bit of doom and gloom, and I don't want to, because it's wonderful. There's far more pluses than there is negatives. I had a little girl called Priscilla in my first in Tunsa Children's Orphanage. She came to us at 11 years of age. She was doing her Leaving Cert about 4 years ago. Well, it's not Leaving Cert. She was 17 and we had her in a boarding school. And this is where Róisín comes in. She gets time to sit and talk to them. I'm trying to build something or put a biogas. Róisín sits and talks. And her and Priscilla had a lovely contact with each other. And she asked Priscilla what was her story. How did she come to be in Tunsa's? And she said, Mum and Dad, she calls us Mum and Dad. She said, I don't know if I'm an orphan or not. And I go, what do you mean you don't know? Well, she said back in 2009, there was an election in Kenya, and two parties came together, didn't believe that one had lost and one had won, and went at it. And the big thing in Kenya is your tribe. You can be a Kikuyu, you can be a Luo, you can be a Masai. The tribe is everything. And they slaughtered each other. Overnight, they went mad at each other. It went on for nearly 15 months, and little Priscilla was 11, and she was down in the local village with her mum and her brother and sister, and it went off. And she got separated. The mother fled one way, and she happened to go the other way. And she ended up in an IDP camp, an Internally Displaced Persons camp, the plastic, and through a lady ended up in Tunsa's and was with us for nearly 6 years was with us, 5.5 years, from 11.5 up to 17. And that's where she was. She was in school. She didn't know anything. And Róisín said to me, Paddy, we have to do something. And I said, she said, what are we going to do? So we flew over, the two of us, 1 week in November. We took this little girl out of school. Now, Edwina at this stage was with us, and her husband, Timothy. She wasn't happy about taking her out of school because she was doing her Leaving Cert this particular Saturday. We got into our van and we drove for 4 hours to a place called Limuru. It's a place of tea plantation area. We got out of the van and Priscilla had a Róisín's hand, and she pointed down this hill and said, that's where I used to live, but there was nothing there. And I went to the gates of this little tea plantation factory, and in my pidgin Swahili asked this man, did he ever hear of this girl? And he hadn't. And I said, is there anybody 6 years or more in this factory that might have heard of her? And he said, no. And this is, God is my judge. There was two little boys standing against a wall beside us, about 6 years of age and maybe 8. And one of them called me Mzungu Mzee, which is an old white man. I was really browned off with that, I must admit. But he said, we know this lady. And I said, what? He said, we know her. And I looked at Róisín and I thought, what have we got to lose? Let's follow these two kids. So they took us up this road and across this tea plantation. It was a beautiful area. And a little boy came running down towards us, about 7 years of age, with a milk can. And we stopped, and he was Priscilla's brother. He'd been 1.5 years when we followed him anyway, up this route. And we came across a load of tin shacks. And I knocked on this tin door, and I walked in, and there was a woman inside with a fire inside, twigs with a blanket over where they were sleeping, and our 3 children. And I said, Jina langu ni Paddy. My name is Paddy. I have a girl here. And Priscilla burst past us, and we found her mother. And I started to cry. Róisín will tell you, we just sobbed. It was like somebody had released a pressure valve on the back of her neck. Because I was thinking, what am I doing here? What are we doing taking this child who hasn't found her parents, her mother in 5 years, in 49 million people to try and find her mother? I walked away and I went down to the local shop, tin shack, and bought some milk and tea and brought it back up. And we sat for an hour, and her mother said to us, we had a name of a neighbour, and his name was, say, Johnny. And I said, who was this man, Johnny? And she said his wife, was a clairvoyant, basically. And his wife told her that if she prayed every day, a man would come to her door with her child. And after an hour, she let us take that child away and put her back into school. Can you imagine an Irish mother finding her child after 5.5 years? And Priscilla's a nurse now, and she's the most wonderful little girl. She looks after the family. She's become the head of the family. But that's how much Róisín Kelly means to me. She was the...
Through the bus.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. I'll be honest and say I was a bit cruel there because I let you cry on camera, because otherwise if I came in, I'd be crying.